Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're so happy that you have joined us again.
We truly are.
And we have a special guest with us today, Jaime Breeze. She is a Canadian psychic medium and animal communicator. She is a certified spiritual medium, has trained in Canada and the United States with world-renowned psychic mediums, and she lives in the majestic Canadian Rockies in Jasper, Alberta. So welcome, Jaime. We're happy to have you on our podcast.
Thanks. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's such an honor to be a guest speaker.
And it's nice to have a fellow Canadian. So
yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And you're right. They are absolutely breathtaking and majestic, the mountains. So
yeah, except I'm going on minimal sleep. It's elk rutting season. So I had an elk screaming in my bedroom window all night.
Oh no.
All night. Oh, it was crazy. And I try not to complain because it's beautiful nature and the elk are doing their thing. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I tried so hard to put pillows over my head. I listened to a podcast in the middle of the night trying to drown it out. I don't know if you've ever heard an elk bugle.
I can't say I have.
It is very loud. It is very loud. So
yes. You didn't go as far as you go whenever. Okay, time for you to go now.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into psychic medium and communicating with the animals? And
yeah, so when I was a toddler, I spoke openly to my parents about previous lives I remembered, and I always talked about the spirit world from a young age. I always felt there were beings around me, which I called angels, spirit guides. And thankfully my parents were quite supportive in that way. They didn't turn the light off inside of me. They were always willing to connect and help me understand these things I was seeing or feeling. And, this was the 80s. So we didn't have the internet then, and so my mom would do her research through the libraries and try and find information about psychic children and reincarnation and stuff. So my journey started the day I was born, I'm going to say. And I always felt there was something more out there. And I always felt, a bit different from my peers, and always, I don't want to say my head in the clouds, but always kind of in a different realm kind of thing. And then as I grew up, it really showcased to me that, yeah, my classmates in high school and stuff weren't seeing spirits and talking to animals like I thought was normal. I was very close with my cats growing up, and I would just always connect with them and communicate with them. And I would think this was something everyone did. But again, it wasn't until my teen years I realized, geez, my friends don't do this. So, it kind of just, it was always my number one passion, the other side, and talk about heaven and reincarnation and all this stuff. And I never really thought, well, can I make a career out of it? But it's always been a thing. And then when I met my dog in 2008, I instantly felt a strong bond with her and a spiritual connection. And I felt like we had lived previous lives together and we had known each other before. And we just had such a soul connection. And unless you've experienced that with an animal, it might be hard to understand, but she touched my heart. And then when she passed in 2016, I was completely and utterly devastating. And I thought, how am I going to live the next 40, 50 years without her? And, I became very upset and depressed. And as a medium, at the time, who's always connected with the other side, I was shocked that I was going through so much pain and grief. And I realized having that gift doesn't shield you from those human emotions. And so after, being very depressed and upset, and I felt my life was ending, I thought it hit me, and I thought, well, when I was a kid, I remembered my past lives, which means I reincarnated. So why can't my dog reincarnate? And so that was like a light bulb that went off. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do my best to understand my grief, the waves of emotion that I'm experiencing, and really work hard to connect with my dog on the other side. And it took a few months because I was very shielded with grief. But once I was able to connect with her, we worked together on a different level. And, she would share with me experiences that I need to learn before she came back to this world. And over time, through dreams or intuition, she'd give me, and she's sitting right beside me, so I have to look at her because she's listening. She'd give me signs of when, where, how I would find her again in her new reincarnated dog body. And that was a journey of many ups and downs for 2.5 years. And then it's actually coming up to 4 years next week that we reunited in her body. Nice. And so with that experience, with connecting with her on the other side, it showcased to me the journey animals take to reincarnate and what they do on the other side when people are grieving them. And it really helped me to understand the whole process of animal grief and reincarnation. And that really propelled me into my work that I do today. I do connect with people on the other side, but I mainly, now it's really focused on animal grief, animal mediumship, and reincarnation.
Wow.
Because animal grief is so real and so strong. And in society, we're expected to get up and go back to work the next day. Just get another dog, replace that dog, replace that cat, whatever. But for majority of us, it's not that easy. It's like losing a human family member for many of us. So, and people need that resource and that outlet of pet mediumship. I find is so healing and comforting. So that's kind of a long story, kind of short. But that's how I got into what I do today.
Beautiful. That's just beautiful.
I think that's awesome because I know for you, your last 2 dogs, she was so attached to, and when they passed over, you're exactly right. That was that grieving time. And it is hard to go back to work that next day when they've passed, right? Because that's just so much a part of our lives. And
it really is. Yeah, I still grieve her sometimes, or both of them actually. It's interesting though, because I'm at this place right now working, and they have a cat, and the cat on the most part is always terrified of noise and everything like that. And we're using different machines to do different things. And this cat, she's older, comes up and she'll sit there and watch me until I acknowledge her and say, how are you doing today? That type of thing. And she'll sit there. It's like, I know her. And she sits around and then she has her little acknowledgement with me. And then away she toddles off. And it's funny because the owners are going, she doesn't do that. And she's so happy with me. That's why she likes me. It's funny, but you can get that feeling with an animal that they're close to you, right? You just can.
Yeah. And a lot of times when we're doing animal mediumship or animal communication, so connecting on a telepathic level with an animal who is still in a physical, they do bring up a lot of past life information. And a lot of times there are people will be like, I knew it. I knew I had known them from my childhood. I knew they were my childhood cat or my childhood dog. There's that inkling inside of people who don't believe they have the intuition and stuff, but everyone has it, right? And then sometimes with that just innate knowing, I have known this animal before. Like you can't deny it. It's so strong.
It really is. And I mean, it's beautiful when you offer a service like that, because I think that's not something people know a lot about. And I know that a lot of people feel very lost when their pet has passed, right?
Oh,
And
no.
I know a
Yeah.
girlfriend of mine actually did reach out. Her dog just passed, and she actually did reach out. I'm not sure to who, but she did reach out to someone to communicate with her
Yeah.
kitty on the other
So
side. Yeah.
so when my dog
Donna,
passed in
yeah.
2016, I was willing to do anything, you know, and so I even went to like a grief counselor, and I was so disappointed when I left. I was in tears leaving, thinking, because I woke up that morning thinking, okay, I'm going to get some answers of what to do next, what I'm supposed to feel. And they almost mocked me for coming there because of a pet. And so I left feeling even more lost than ever.
Frustrated.
And because there's not enough resources, it is getting out there. There's a lot more now, and especially with like social media, like Instagram and everything, we can find a lot more pet psychologists or pet grief counselors or animal mediums. So it's up and coming, but it is still so fresh, and so many people need that, and people need they need to understand it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel depressed after my dog dies. Like, that's normal. And you should feel that way because it was a true love companion. Why wouldn't you feel that way?
Mhm.
You know, so I'm excited for the future in this because I feel that, you know, as the years go on and progress, I feel like in the next 10 years, animal communication mediumship will be so sought after and so appreciated and trusted, you know. And I feel like everyone might have their own personal animal communicator, just like you have your own hairdresser or you have your own vet.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Why
think
not?
society has changed so much too. Like back in the day, they were pets, right? They lived outside and that was
Yep.
kind of the thing. And now we've moved into a thing where they really are a part of our lives. And we become so attached to them that when they pass, that, you know, there is that empty space. And, you know, you question, right? Do I get a new one? I love your story where you were reincarnated with yours, so which is great. What do you think when you're doing the animal mediumship? What is some things that people get out of that?
Well, what I want to do first is I want to connect with the animal on the other side to show their people, their family, that it is them who I'm connecting with. So any sort of validating evidence, like their personality, their core essence, I want to start with that. They might showcase memories that they had or things they loved to do, like riding in dad's blue pickup truck, you know, or listening to the country music when they're driving down, you know, specific pieces of evidence that the animal liked. You know, their favorite green blanket or their favorite pink elephant squeaky toy, like some concrete pieces of evidence. So I want to showcase to their families that, yeah, we are connecting with the right animal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I want to showcase it's important to also show what's been happening after the transition to the other side. So, okay, like for example, a couple weeks ago, this one dog, the dog's mom said, like, how do I know that he's been around us? And he showed me being around baby sheep. And I said, well, were you guys just with baby sheep the other day? And she had taken her toddler to a petting zoo and they were playing with the baby sheep. And she's like, yeah, we were just at the petting zoo. And I said, well, your dog is saying he was there with the baby sheep when you were there. Like, he's still doing these adventures with you. Or they showcase, like, you guys, and I think the same couple, they are planning a trip to Florida. And I asked, are you planning a trip to Florida? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, your dog is saying from the other side, like, I'm around you while you're planning this trip to Florida. You know, so I want to show that your animal is still being a part of your life, because it's true, your relationship with them still exists. It's just a bit different right now. They're just not in the physical. So the animals are saying, like, yes, I am going, I actually had, was it yesterday? Everything's blending together.
They do. They do.
I had a dog on the other side tell me that his brother, the mother's son, is being bullied at school. And the dog told me this. And the dog is in spirit form. And the dog said, well, I'm going to protect him while he's at school, while I'm on the other side. So also stuff like that, like they understand what we're going through on this earth during it. And this dog wanted to protect his human brother, from being bullied and stuff. So, so I want to do that. And then if the people are interested in reincarnation, or the animal might bring it up anyway, they might give us a timeline, or the lesson that we have to go through as people before they come back into a new body.
I like that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that question, so you answered it for me.
Okay. Yeah. Like my lesson was I had to understand the levels of reincarnation and animal mediumship on a deeper level. So I had to go through that experience with my dog.
Right.
And I always like to use this example too. This wasn't a client of mine, but I heard about this and I really like this example because people can understand it very well. So this woman lost her cat to the other side, and she was just grief stricken. And the cat said she would come back, but my mom needs to learn how to love herself and be alone, because this woman wouldn't do anything without her cat. Like she couldn't even watch a movie by herself and enjoy it. She just needed always to be around her cat or people. She could never do anything by herself. And so the cat was like, once my mom understands to appreciate herself and self-love, then it's my time to come back. So this woman had to really dig deep and like, I like hanging out with myself. I like just reading a book and being alone. I like cooking dinner by myself. And so the cat on the other side was teaching her self-love. And then once she got that down pat, her cat came back.
That's very cool.
That is neat.
That's a very nice
Yeah.
story.
And I like that. I like that. Like they give that timeline of when, right? Because that's always a question, I think, is it too soon? Do we jump when, we lose them to get one right away? Do we wait and have that connection? Because that's such a beautiful connection to, have them kind of reincarnate and spend more time with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know with me, my dog, I had 2 dogs, but my last dog in particular, she traveled everywhere with me. And people would still tease me, your dog's traveled more than I have in my lifetime, and it was like, yeah, well, they had to come where I was going because that had to happen.
My husband says that all the time.
Does he?
My dog has been to Mexico more times than he has.
It's funny because it's like, I was like, when you were talking about the other lady, I thought, yeah, my dog went with me everywhere. And she was like in my pocket. Like she was tiny, but she was in my pocket all the time. And it's interesting when you're telling me this story. I remember that when I was traveling with her, I used to always worry, oh, is she comfortable? Like she could sit on my feet, right? Is she comfortable? And she used to look up at me because I give her that Bach remedy for animals for calming her down. And she would look up, I'd open up her case and look down at her, and she'd stare up at me as if to say, I'm safe, Mom, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then she'd close her eyes, go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So, definitely a communication that she was telling me, you can relax now, I'm all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the checking in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So no, it's beautiful what you're doing. That's great. Helping people through such a loss.
Yeah, I like to think so, because animals, I just don't think we've appreciated them over the centuries as much as we should. And I hope that starts to change. I think they're, angels walking on earth, and they do so much for us. And they're so healing. They're so healing. And I'm not medically trained at all. And I make sure I tell my clients this, but animals talk medical stuff all the time.
No
I
doubt.
had a dog detect lung cancer in one of my clients before. Yeah, and they have also showcased many medical issues of themselves that vets have been like, we don't know, we can't figure this out. I had this one cat from Paris, and his mouth, he was just swollen, and like he couldn't eat and drink, and his owner took him to the vet, and they did x-rays and everything, and they couldn't figure it out. And so I connected with this cat, and this cat says, I have a bone in my gum. And well, his owner was like, well, we already did x-rays. And she was so convinced that about animal communication that she took her cat back to the vets and forced them to do another x-ray. Sure enough, they found a bone shard wedged in his gum that got so infected, and it took 2 x-rays to find it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but this cat knew. It's like, no, this is what's happening. I need this out. And so his mom keeps this little bone in this little vial because it's like a souvenir to prove like this, how smart her cat was. But, and I'm not saying vets are wrong or anything, because they're fabulous and we need them. But I'm just saying animals know more than we give them credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny that when you were telling that story, because it made me think, I went to my son's house and my blood pressure was really, really high. And his dog jumped up on me and she scratched me like on the inside of your elbow, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so I said, oh, wouldn't it be funny if I went to the doctor's, because I had a doctor's appointment coming up. Wouldn't it be funny if I went and that my blood pressure had actually come down because the dog kind of was releasing the pressure, right? Sure enough, I went to the doctor's. It wasn't low, but it had actually dropped quite significantly. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. Like,
yeah,
right. So where you were saying they are healing and they detect things, it was like, what are the odds that he would have jumped on me like that and scratched me like that to release that. So I think you recognize too, right?
Yeah, and I've had a lot of animals as well predict pregnancies too, like before the mom even realizes she's pregnant and stuff. So that's really cool too.
That is so cool.
Oh, nice.
Go ahead.
No,
No, I just think it's so lovely because they do have so much information for us while they're here and once they've passed. And I think that's great that you're able to give that and some kind of closure, right? For people. Because I think that's important is this because usually when they pass, it's not always sudden, but sudden enough that you need that closure.
Yeah, well, I feel like fear is a main thing. People are scared that their relationship is done, whether it's a human or a pet, right? That is terrifying. Will I ever see my mom again? Will I ever see my dog again? That is very terrifying. And that's why I love mediumship. I find is so important, is because it showcases that your relationship continues. It might not be in the physical form. We might not be able to touch it, but we're able to hear it, feel it, see it in our third eye, and continue that on. So I think instead of possibly closure, but reassurance.
Right.
Reassurance that you will see that individual again. Whether you go to the other side or they reincarnate or the animal reincarnates back. I do believe in human reincarnation because I've reincarnated many, many times, but I don't really tap into that so much for other people.
Yeah.
Because it can establish quite a different set of emotions. Because if your mother passed away and then she came back as your niece and you knew that, that's going to throw your whole life on a little different kilter, right? How do we manage that? But when a dog passes away and comes back as your dog again, you can pick up right where you left off.
Yeah.
the relationship continues the way it was.
Nice.
So,
So
that's
is
why I
it-
love animal reincarnation.
Absolutely. Is it similar then with like mediumship where you do with people? Is it the same thing with animals as you can tell people like some signs or things that they can watch for how they're going to show back up in their lives if they don't get another pet?
Yes,
Good question.
absolutely. 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 100%. And the other cool thing that happens in animal mediumship readings, they like to show us who they're with. So they bring in deceased family members and friends all the time. So it's nice to know that they're with family and they're being taken care of. And it also showcases that, yeah, we are part of your soul family. So we are with your family on the other side, because why wouldn't we be?
Exactly.
And so I love that. I love that. There's been so many times people's parents are on the other side and they'll be come through and holding the dog or the cat, and it's just so lovely to see and know.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. So can you, what would you say if you're going to say to our listeners something that you think that they should know about the animals?
Well, so your animal in front of you knows everything. They know everything. They know all your deepest, darkest secrets, because that's how intelligent they are. They know many more words than we give them credit for. They are very spiritual. They're connected with the other side constantly. So death isn't scary for them. It's just going home and getting a new body and coming back. So we need to start trusting them more. They're here to help us and help us grow spiritually. And if rely on them, they want you to ask them for help. They want you to ask them for their advice or comfort. Acknowledge your pet in that way and ask, get them to do something more. They love having jobs and they love making us happy. So don't just throw the food down and be like, there's your dinner. Establish that strong relationship with them, because that's what they want and they will never disappoint you.
Right.
And for those listening, if your animal has passed, know that your relationship still exists. You will see them again. You will hear from them again, but reach out, talk to them on the other side as well, because your messages will be heard by them 100%. And I've been shown that by spirit so many times. 100%. Anything you write to them, in your mind speak to them, or verbally speak to them, your messages are received. But it's up to us then to kind of surrender to the energy and hear the messages back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether that's through a vision, a feeling, a knowing, like an innate knowing inside of you, then that's how they deliver the messages, because they don't want to show up and pop up in front of us because we would be terrified, right?
Yeah.
So they do it in the subtle ways, and everyone has the abilities to connect and trust.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much. I
Yes.
appreciate that. So can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and I do have a website. It's all under my name, Jaime Breeze, and people do get confused by my first name. It's spelled Jaime and then Breeze, and on all those platforms.
Perfect. I'll put that all in the show notes so people can find you and reach out to you if they want to,
Yeah.
talk to you about that or follow your social platforms so that they can see, how you work and.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm also going to be starting a podcast soon as well, called Both Sides Now, and it's going to focus on the stories that the animals have shared with us doing mediumship readings. Yeah. And I'm going to have some guest speakers on whose animals we have worked with on the other side and who have since reincarnated back to them.
Oh, it's awesome. That sounds like
Yeah.
a wonderful, like it's so positive, and I love that it will bring that really positive energy to it.
Exactly. And I was like, I don't want to like have it all sappy and our animals have crossed over and all that stuff. No, empowering and inspirational.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That
Good for
sounds like it
you.
will be, so.
Good
well,
luck with that. I hope it's I'm sure it's going to be very successful for you to do
I
that.
have no idea how to start, but it's coming on paper. So
That's
paper
awesome.
first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, take your time with it. I know you're going to do well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Thank you.
you're very pleasant to be with us now. So I'm certain it's going to be good. So yeah,
Well,
maybe you
thank
can come
you.
back later on then with us and
I'd
share
love
some
to.
more experiences that you
Yeah, share some
Yeah.
stories and things like
I'd love
that.
to. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I hope the elks settle down. Maybe
Yeah,
you just need to
another
talk
month.
to them.
Yeah, I know. You would think I would have said something last night, but I was so tired. I was like, no. But yeah. Well, thank you, Kim and Barb. It was so lovely to meet you both.
Yes, you too. And you everybody else, join us next week.
You bet you will.